Okay, welcome. It's a special council meeting for Wednesday, September 28th, 2022. I'd like to say we're starting at 5 o'clock and acknowledge that we're meeting on the unceded territories of the Comox First Nations. On behalf of the council, I just also would like to wish Mayor Arnott well as he's undergoing treatments this evening, and our thoughts are with you. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda? All in favor? Carried. All right. Could I also now have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second. All
in favor? Carried. All right, moving on. So there's five items on the consent agenda. Just would anybody like to pull any of those out for discussion? Okay, so you can. And Nicole, which one do you want, or Councillor Minions, which one would you like to pull out?
I'll pull out 4 after.
Okay. Okay, so let's start with number 3. Councillor Grant.
I believe it's a one-off. If I recall correctly, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. are the noise bylaws for construction. So as long as they're operating within those timeframes, we have had discussions with them, just reminding them, and I don't think that there has been any issues, or we haven't heard any issues since this letter's come in.
Okay, so was this like, were they doing something special on that particular day that they, because it sounds like it's only 1 or 2 days that this has happened.
I'm not sure, sorry.
I had a chance to speak with the residents as well. He said it did improve Thursday and Friday last week after someone from the town spoke with the construction team. So perhaps it was just certain work that they were doing that day, but not certain. Okay. Councilor Minions, you want to talk about number 4?
Yeah, I just wanted to pull the letter from Hope Afloats about the marine changes with what we approved with the rescue facilities, I believe. It sounds like we maybe haven't just had the discussion one-on-one with Hope Afloat. And so I was just wondering, with the will of council, if it would be okay for someone to reach out and just have a discussion about if there is a way that it will impact them less if their boat can move, downwards based on CO. Well, with saying that it depends on their boat depth and where it needs to be, but instead of just kind of letting it go with a council letter that it's changed and that's it, I think they're well viewed in the community. So it would be worth a reach out to them just to find out how this does impact them, whether we can or can't change it. But worth at least the connections. They're such a good community member and really work well with people that have struggled with cancer.
See you all.
Yeah, we certainly can. And, in positive news, we will have our new parks manager starting their position on Monday. And so I think part of maybe the communication shortfall that's happened here is just this transition taking place during a time where that position wasn't there. There's likely still potential for us to support them the way that we have in the past, but it's going to require the movement of different areas. And it's likely that the float house that council's approved to go down in that location won't be there for a while yet. So there's time for discussion to take place, and it's not something that needs to happen immediately. It sounds like they did get the heads up that something is going to change, but we'll make sure to work with them moving forward.
So it sounds like you don't need a motion, but it's something we can discuss offhand of getting that communications, and maybe it's good for them to know that it may be 1, 2, or 3 years. Thank you.
Any other items from the consent agenda? Okay, on to the next agenda item. So agenda item 2B, the 2021 permissive tax exemption bylaw establishing the 2022 exemptions. So yeah, the motion that the Comox permissive tax exemption bylaw 2009-2002 be adopted. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, moving right along. Item 2C, the Marine Services Building final approval. So can I maybe entertain a motion?
Move the recommendations.
Okay, so moving number 1, that the town of Comox enter into a fixed price contract with Kinetic Construction for the construction of the Marine Services Building, that the Marine Services Building budget be amended to approve funds of up to $2,100,000. And up for discussion. Councilor Minions.
Yeah, I think at first glance, just knowing kind of where we started and where we're going to now, I had some kind of hesitation because we kind of started around the 1 to 1.4 and we were at the 1.6 to 1.7. And when I first saw the report at 2.1, my eyes kind of bulged open and thought, I don't necessarily know the financial implications with the 2 to 3 lease spaces. Reading the staff report, I was given some comfort on what those numbers could look like long term. But I guess what I want to further understand is I could definitely be more comfortable around that 1.9, 1.95 and having council look at any kind of overages from a one-off basis to make sure we haven't kind of doubled the budget. But yeah, what would be the implications if we did approve kind of that 1.9, 1.95 on budget without the overages? What would that look like? And then also just if there's a little bit of an update at all on what the iced tea timeline for that $300,000 grant would look like, knowing it's not for sure, if there's any updates on that.
CEO Wall?
Yeah, so the building could, you hope the building comes in at the 1.9. So if by council providing that level of contingency, it doesn't mean that, let me back up a little bit. So by going into the stipulated price contract, what that means is that if there's cost overages in the construction of the building, it's not something the council is responsible for. It's not something the town's responsible for. What that contingency is really there is if through the construction project, we find that there's needed changes in order to make things, maybe a wall needs to be moved. Maybe we find wiring upgrades need to come somewhere, all the little things that may come along. Now, I think we've done our due diligence on this and we've planned this building out that we hope that's not going to be there. So council could move forward and approve that one, the number around 1.9, 1.95. But what that does mean is staff won't have the ability to make changes without coming to council. So if we do come up on something in the middle of a construction project that we need to make a decision on that's going to require funds, we're going to have to get the council report. We're going to have to call a special meeting of council, do the 24 hours notice. Council's going to have to meet. They're going to have to make that decision, and then we'll go back. And you can see, even in a really tight time frame, you're probably talking 2 or 3 days to get that turnaround. And if that issue in the construction project is holding up what's moving forward, the amount of money that I think council was hoping to save by not allowing that contingency to be there will be eaten up by the fact that the construction project may have to come to a stop, or you'll leave your staff in the position of saying, well, this needs to be done. We'll approve the overage and go ask for council later. But by not giving that contingency now, it would be an indication to us that we don't do that and we just live with what's there. So I would suggest, and I think it's in the report as well, that if council isn't comfortable with that $2.1 million number, it's probably better to defeat it than it is to go with the 1.9 and hope for the best, because it adds a lot of risk to the project. And it adds risk to the project on upward pressure price, because we may have to stop construction in order to get decisions from council midstream.
Councillor Grant?
I'm happy with the 2.1. I think that I don't think we're going to hit that number. I think we've done our due diligence. I think there's been enough building done down at the park that we have a fairly good idea where we are with everything. So I think if you have it there and you need to use it, that's one thing. I don't think we're going to have to. So I would hate to have to come back and go through all those steps. And sometimes these grants have timelines on them. And if you start butting up against the timeline, you can lose the grant partway through. And that's never, I've been there, done that. That's not a good thing. So I'm comfortable with that.
Councilor Minions, do you need the answer to the second part of the question?
Not without
Funding for approving this, or that part of?
No, I do have a follow-up, but I need Councilor Bissinger also.
Okay. Councilor Bissinger.
Sure, thanks. I also agree with 2.1, and I'm actually wondering if it's even enough, because I'm curious if there was a geotech study done, and I guess Councilor Grant says there probably has been for the other 2 buildings, but considering all that area is like infill soils, just want to make sure, because over excavation can cost quite a bit, or if we need to do any foundation changes. But then also the 1.88, when was that price from Kinetic, and do we need to adjust it? Because I seem to recall this was like quite a while ago that we got pricing for it. And does that include like a recent, I guess, recosting of it?
Yeah, so the closure of the tender happened about 3 weeks ago, so the pricing is quite fresh and it's locked into. The previous were the cost estimates that we were working on that were, higher with the chance for variability. This is the price that it will be.
Councillor Swift.
Thank you. I'm also comfortable with the 2.1. I think, I would hate the building to have to come to a halt and go through a process when they're partway through. I think it makes more sense to approve it now and hope that we don't need to use it.
Councillor Means, you have another point?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of reiterate, because again, these numbers are new in the last couple of days, but the whole purpose of growing the 921 square foot of retail space is to be able to have that ongoing revenue. And is there, I've heard kind of, possibly Harbor Air or possibly the sailing, is there basically a strategic or action plan for those 3 specific spaces that would kind of motivate that last 5% of the 2.1, but really kind of seeing what the vision of that is? It's going from that size building to a much bigger building, gender neutral washrooms, which is great, but what is kind of the clear intention for the 920 square feet of retail space?
Yeah, and that's that 920 square feet of retail space is really why this project has been approved at all the different grants, because they've been economic recovery grants. And it's to make sure that we're targeting infrastructure investments from the provincial government that will spur economic activity. And so what we need to do is work with the business community to try and find the right type of businesses that are going to go in there. There'll be a public process, an RFP process, to determine who is going to be in there. We did an initial expression of interest, and we did have interest from a number of parties that we think would work well in there. We've been speaking with other ones that we think would work well in there as well, but it will be a public and open process with scoring matrices meant to design for a couple things. So we've told people that are interested in the space, that's great, you're interested. What we want to know is how you can share that space with a different business as well. What synergies can you find in doing that? What synergies and what options can you provide to nonprofit buildings or nonprofit operations as well, so that they can do different levels of training in there or have access to it. So our goal is to turn it into as much of a multi-use space as possible, while acknowledging that it will be singular businesses that are holding the different lease agreements for that space. And so it really comes down to the RFP release and the scoring matrix that requires businesses to show us that they're working with other businesses, utilizing that space as much as possible. It has to do with the tourism industry and has the potential to grow and feed off of each other, as well as working with the nonprofit groups that are around as well. We do have one current tenant, Compass Adventures, and Compass Adventures, from the terms of the lease they had, will have 1 year in the new building before that space comes up for RFP.
So just as a follow-up, because you guys did the pre-work, the demand is definitely there for that space at that location.
The demand was definitely there when the expression of interest was released, which would have been about a year and a half ago. In any other climate, I would be fairly comfortable in saying that the world is the same, in just the way things are today. It would be anybody's guess of what's changed since then.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor oh yeah, please go ahead.
And sorry, to answer the last of, or we expect to hear back from the iced tea sometime in November, maybe early December, on a decision for funding.
And just for anyone watching at home, iced tea is not referring to a 90s rapper, but the Island Coast Economic Trust Capital Innovation Program. So with that, we have a motion on the floor, item 2-C-1. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Sure.
Second.
Okay, so motion has been moved that council authorizes an application to be made to the Island Coast Economic Trust Capital and Innovation Program for $300,000, and that council commits to covering any funding amounts needed for construction of the marine services building. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Great. Okay. With that, now I'd like to entertain a motion to exclude the public to go into camera.
Second.
Okay, so that this is to public be excluded from the special in-camera session on council on Wednesday, October 28th, 2022, pursuant to the following subsection of section 90 of the community charter, 1-C, labor relations or other employee relations. We have a motion and a second there. Oh, September. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Well done. Still got it. All right.